A lot of people think that just putting kids in daycare or preschool will help build social skills. Today, we're discussing this question. Hi, I'm Dr. Mary Barbera, autism mom, behavior analyst, and best-selling author. Each week, I provide you with some of my ideas about turning things around. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do that now. Don't forget to hit the bell too to be notified. So this is an excerpt from podcast number 188, all about the top 5 questions we get about social skills. So I thought we would start just this video blog, just cover the one question we get, which is, does putting a child in daycare or preschool help with social skills? Is that enough, especially if the child is diagnosed with autism? So let's get to that answer.
So our next question is, my child's doctor and even my husband say that if I put my child in daycare, they'll begin to play with other kids and build the social skills that they're delayed in. Is that true?
I actually thought that was true when we enrolled Lucas into a typically developing toddler preschool program when he was 2, and he was a new 2. His birthday is July 3rd. So he was a young 2, but my husband was convinced that we needed to start. We didn't know he had autism, although my husband first mentioned it at 21 months of age, which I'm sure if you've listened to some podcasts, you know that I was in a deep state of denial, and that so he went to preschool, and he actually, and this is in chapter 7 of my book, he actually did pretty well. A lot of the kids had bad separation anxiety. He was very laid back child, always. And so I could drop him off. He didn't fight over toys because he really wasn't interested in toys. He would sit in circle time without a problem. He didn't cry, he liked to paint. And so it wasn't until mid-year, when it was time to enroll Lucas in the 3-year-old's preschool the following year, that the teacher and the director requested a meeting with me and my husband, and told us that they thought he was not ready to go up to the 3-year-old class. I didn't know any of this. Like, I didn't know that when you go from 2-year-old to 3-year-old class, like the ratio gets worse. So there's less teachers with more kids, that going from 2-year-old to 3-year-old preschool, you need to be potty trained. Well, I mean, he wasn't even talking really. I mean, he had pop out words. I didn't know what pop out words were. He was in speech therapy, and they also told me, which I didn't know, that summer birthday boys are usually held back for kindergarten and those sorts of things, that they tend to be more immature, because there were kids almost a year older in the same class. So, you can make a lot of excuses for why he was delayed. They didn't mention the word autism at that meeting when he was 2.5, but when we left, my husband's like, they think he has autism just like I do. And so we started to get more serious about looking into the diagnosis. So it is not true. I've worked with hundreds of kids directly, and many of them, and a lot of our online participants, they're just like, put your child in daycare and they'll, sink or swim, they'll figure it out, they'll be social. But what I see happening, especially with kids, like for Lucas, we got extremely lucky that he had no problem behaviors that he just had. Like, I can't think of 100 clients that I've had in the past that could have done that well in preschool by themselves, without a diagnosis, without any support. Like, it just, he had a great teacher and a great assistant teacher, and they were very mothery with him, and he was fine. He was safe. But most kids do get into lots of trouble when they're put into a placement that's not great. And it's not their fault. So if you have a child who is not passing, can't go to the 3-year-old preschool because they're having problem behaviors, they're not potty trained, those sorts of things. It's not their fault. If you have a child that gets kicked out of preschool, which it happens, or daycare, it's not their fault. And it's not your fault either if you're the parent, and it's not your fault as a professional. It's just sometimes kids are in an environment that's not appropriate for them at the moment. So if you are, and some people need to put their kids in daycare, they've been in daycare their whole lives, the parents both work, there's all these situations, so there's no judgment here on my part or Kelsey's part. But if a child's having problem behaviors, he's hitting or biting or kicking, if he's rolling around on the floor, like I even went to see a child that I was consulting with, and this child was in daycare just one day a week for socialization. And I looked over and he was licking the wall. I was just there to observe. Of course, when I saw that, I got up, removed the child from the wall. Like you don't want kids licking walls. But I was there to observe to see if this is useful. Well, it wasn't useful. She was wandering around. She was not making any gains. Like there's no point in having a child somewhere where they're not having some success, they're not learning. And even if you have a child like Lucas, him sitting there, he needs one-to-one engagement. He needed, he got into an ABA program shortly after, when he was diagnosed. It's like he needs to catch up, not just sit there and go backwards, because those kids are 2 or 3 and they are pretend playing, they are waiting in line, they are sharing, they are imitating, communicating, telling the teacher if there's a problem, telling the teacher if they have to go to the bathroom. And it's not fair, no matter how old the child is. If the child is 3, but functioning as a 1-year-old, you can't put them in a 3-year-old class and expect everything to go well. Same thing for any age. If there's a huge discrepancy, it's not fair to the child, and there needs to be some other plan.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the most common misconceptions I hear is, oh, I'll just put them in daycare and it'll be fine. And I think if some kids have the prerequisite skills, it could help. If they have some imitation skills, they don't really have behavior problems, there's enough support. I think there's situations where it could help, but I think everyone should go into these things as, if you are just doing it for socialization, as let's try this for a couple weeks. Because sometimes, we see it all the time in our courses, no problem behaviors at home or problem behaviors at home managed, and they're hitting, kicking, and biting at daycare. Well, and they're not. And while we should go through a lot more problem solving if they need to be there for work and, situations like that, for just socialization, they're just learning problems, honestly, because they don't have enough support and they don't have enough skills to navigate that situation. I will say, because I'm a single mom and need to work, Brentley's been in and out of daycares since he was 2.5 with a 1-to-1, always has a 1-to-1. And even still, we didn't add a social goal for him until he started showing motivation in wanting those social goals. The only goal was he needed to be there and be safe and to be engaged with an adult. Like, he was never there for socialization. And now at 8, he has some social goals and he's doing great with them. But there would have been no point putting anyone through that when he didn't have the skills.
Right. And Lucas did go to the 3-year-old class in that same typical preschool, and he went with an ABA therapist. So that's another issue I see with daycare and preschool, is all day on Friday just for socialization. Like, that's way too long, especially when this child doesn't even have a 1-to-1 or has a 1-to-1 for part of the whole day. Yeah. So Lucas had a 1-to-1 then, the whole time after that, but it also was only 2 hours twice a week.
Yeah.
So, and we could use our home program to prime the skills, to work with the teacher for homeschool communication. He still wasn't having any problem behaviors and those sorts of things. So we didn't want to stop it. And that worked out well. again, it's not going to work out well for everybody because if you have to work, but this also is true if your child is at an ABA clinic, a school, a developmental disability school. We have to make sure that wherever they're at, they get a lot of one-to-one attention. They get a lot of actual skills training, actually responses, hundreds and hundreds of responses per hour, not just sitting. I hate to even use this word, but like, I feel like in some situations, like they're just warehousing kids. Like it looks worse than babysitting.
Mhm.
And so if your child is going somewhere and you don't know what's happening there, if they're not happy and they're not making progress and they don't have hundreds of learning opportunities per hour or at least per day, and you don't get any communication to show you what they're working on, like a little smiley guy at the end of the day or a frowny guy, or he had a tough day. I mean, this is more of a systemic problem, probably out of the scope of this little podcast, but it's not just about typically developing schools or clinics or anything. We want to make sure that the child is happy, safe, and learning. I hope you enjoyed this short excerpt from podcast 188. If you did, I'd love it if you'd leave a comment, give a thumbs up, or share with somebody who might benefit. And for more information about how you can potentially join our online course and community, attend a free workshop at marybarbera.com/workshop. And I'll see you right here next week.